Welcome to Aligned and Soulful Leadership. My name is Kavita Milwani, and I empower soulful, multicultural women of color to opulently shine their light without the hustle. I truly believe you can fulfill your soul's desire without losing yourself, your health, or your life in the process. I know that you can ignite your confidence and know your worth, all while walking your divine, unique path. So in this podcast, I will dive deep into topics, challenges, and blocks that women of color experience as they rise up into their aligned life and work. My deep desire is that BIPOC women can lead through their inner wisdom in a way that honors their soul. Are you ready to rise up as the leader you were born to be? Then this podcast is for you. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have with me today Ingela Onstad, who's a high performance coach for attorneys, performing artists, professionals who are in the public eye. Her coaching business, called Courageous Artistry, supports high performing individuals in their quest to perform at the top of their abilities when in front of the public by working on skills to target voice, body, anxiety management, and mindset. So Ms. Onstad is a board-certified coach, a licensed psychotherapist, and a professional opera singer who enjoyed a varied international career in opera, concert work, and contemporary music. She utilizes tools from psychotherapy and the entertainment industry to help shine in front of crowds. To find out more about her, I'll have her link available for viewers to access later on. But yes, welcome, Ingela.
Thanks, Kavita. I just realized in that bio, I sure gave you a lot to read, didn't I? I was like, oh, it's going on and on. Whoops.
It's really can be uncomfortable to hear someone else read it.
Definitely. Yeah. It gives you that moment where you think, should I have shortened that a bit? But
no, it's great. It's great. Yes. And I'm sure people, when they heard opera singer, they had kind of like a little, their ears perked up maybe a little bit there.
Yeah. Say what?
Yes, good. So it's, you're a psychotherapist. You are working now as a high performance coach for basically people that need to be in front of audiences.
Yeah, so many
Right.
people have fear of public speaking. It's such a common phobia, and so really, it's hard to sort of summarize the type of individual I work with because so many professionals have some aspect of public speaking, or whether it's internal communication in a company, or meetings, or job interviews, whatever it is. We almost all nowadays have some public facing aspect of our work that we have to do.
Yes. Yes. And then, since I work with a lot of leaders and executives, they have to speak all the time. Right. And so the presentations, it just becomes of how you function. And so people do it anyway, right? Because they have to do it. But I think being able to convey confidence in public speaking then can help you move forward in your career, for people to recognize you, for people to feel confidence in you as a person of authority. Right. So there's so many benefits to conveying that confidence. So
yeah. And I like that we chose the term for this talk, conveying confidence, because I think one of the most common misconceptions is that we have to feel 100% confident in order to appear 100% confident. And that's just not the case. In fact, if that were true, very few performing artists, for example, would ever have a career, because so much of what you do as a performer is you find a way to sort of either channel the nerves or manage them, or you find a way to act in spite of them. So you might be trembling on the inside, or you might be standing off in the wings going, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to do this? This is really stressful. It's really freaking me out. But your job when you walk onto that stage or walk in front of that camera, and this goes for executives as well, is to convey that confidence. And there's many little things that we can do that help our body and our voice convey the confidence that we may or may not be feeling at the moment. And that's okay. So I like to oftentimes I get the question, well, this feels inauthentic, or isn't that fake if
Mhm.
I'm trying to act my way through this? And I would say, no. In fact, when we're doing any type of new thing, in a way, we feel fake or inauthentic, right? Because it's not comfortable, it's not familiar to us yet.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that learning a new skill, right?
Yes,
That discomfort
definitely.
that happens with that. So
Hmm.
would you say, I think this is really important to emphasize for people that even though someone is a is a performer,
Hmm.
excuse me, that they still may feel nervous
Oh,
before
certainly.
they perform.
Certainly. And I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a handful of people out there, whether it's the public speakers or the performing artists, who don't feel nervous. And on occasion, I have not felt nervous before. It really depends on the situation. But what I like to bring to people's attention is typically when we care about something deeply, when we
Mhm.
have invested a lot of time, money, energy in becoming really good at X, Y, or Z, we then also care a lot. And when we care, we have more at stake.
Yes, that's right.
Right? So it's
Yeah.
a good sign that we feel worried and nervous. It means we care, we're deeply invested, we want to be shining, we want to be doing
Mhm.
our best, we want to step in front of that crowd and really wow them and really communicate and get good feedback. And
Mhm.
I think it just kind of helps people understand, like, we're just human, and
Yes.
if we didn't care, it might mean that that's not the right job for us, or maybe
Yes.
we're experiencing some burnout. So
Mhm.
I would say even folks who feel fairly confident in public speaking or presenting or performing, for my purposes, those are all kind of interchangeable activities. There's going to be some level of at least kind of agitation in our nervous system, which we may interpret as excitement, which we
Mhm.
may kind of go back and forth between excitement and also nerves, etc.
Yes, yes. Okay, good. And so I hear, I see some of the comments about I speak all the time. The amount of prep I do is way too much.
Ah, I love that. I
Yeah,
get a
that's
lot of
right.
that question.
Mhm. Yes, so like over preparing. Yes.
Yeah, it's funny because I think, one of the reel that I have coming out on Instagram and Facebook, and then the video will also be repurposed on, LinkedIn this week. It's all about over preparing. So a lot of people who are in these
Mhm.
positions tend to be overachievers and type A
Yes.
individuals, right?
Mhm.
By necessity, and it's just who they are. So yeah, they tend to over prepare. And in the tip I'm sharing this week, there's a lot of different strategies we could talk about here, but one of the things I want people to consider, if they are the types who are over preparing and over rehearsing, is
Yeah.
to make sure that when they're doing the rehearsing, that they are taking a moment to breathe and set some
Mhm.
intentions of how they would like to feel physically and emotionally while presenting.
Mhm.
It's almost as if we are rehearsing these mental and physical states along with the content. Because
Right.
as as they say in neuropsychology and psychology in general, what fires together wires together. So if
Okay.
we're doing some of this very sort of agitated rehearsing, okay, then I'm going to go through and then I'm going to say this and then I'm going to say that, and we're already kind of in that anticipatory anxiety,
Mhm.
we're wiring some of that along into the content. So if we
Yeah.
can practice feeling calm and cool and collected, or however we would like to feel, for some
Mhm.
people, it's I want to feel connected to my audience. I want to feel grounded. I want to feel happy and excited to share this material, etc. Then we can take that into our rehearsal and bring more of that
Yeah.
into our quote unquote performance.
So the feeling, right? How you're feeling
Yeah.
when you're doing
Yes.
that. So that getting into that feeling state of how you want to feel when you're actually speaking or performing.
Exactly. And
Okay.
the feeling, as you know, we use the word feelings kind of interchangeably for both
Mhm.
physical feelings as well as emotions, but I like to point out to people that emotions truly are feelings within our being, frequently within, from the neck down, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah.
feel different emotions in
Mhm.
different parts of our bodies in different ways, different types of sensations. So, yeah, both the physical feeling of being in our body, how does our body want to feel, and how do we want to feel emotionally?
Yes, yes, I love that. Yeah, so that feeling piece. So that's, if someone's listening and taking notes, that's tip number 1. It's a
Yes,
big one.
yes.
That's a big tip.
Yes, and also for
Yes.
the listener who asked that question about over rehearsing, I think another thing we want to watch out for in over rehearsing is that when we know the content so in such a rote fashion,
Mhm.
Oftentimes, one of the pitfalls is that when we stand up to give the presentation, we will speed through things so quickly because we're nervous and because
Mhm.
we know it so well, and we will lose our listeners. The human brain processes speech best at a certain rate. I think it's something between 140 to 160 words per minute. And
Okay.
when we are nervous, we oftentimes start talking really fast and then we just go through material really, really quickly. And when we do that, our audience stops being able to process. In fact, you might have noticed, like, even right now, I got really mindful and thought, I need to slow
Yes, I
down a
noticed
little
you kind
bit.
of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's another thing to watch out for. I'm all for
Mhm.
preparing and rehearsing. I think it's a necessary strategy.
Mhm.
But then we want to make sure that when we get to the presentation, that we're just bringing ourselves back down to earth and being very mindful of the rate and speed at which we are speaking.
The rate and speech, and would you say the tone too? Because that
Yes.
your example that you gave was very
Mhm.
monotone.
Yes, exactly. So the tone or some people would call it the inflection,
Yeah.
um,
Uh-huh.
is very important. This one tends to psych people out a little bit more because our voices are such an intimate and personal aspect of our personality. Yet at
Yes.
the same time, our voices can be very foreign to us because who hasn't recorded their own voicemail and then went to listen back and gone, well, that's me. I
Yeah.
sound like that. Now, you have a lovely speaking voice, as we all know, and you're a podcaster. So you're regularly in the habit of going back and listening to yourself. You're used to
Mhm.
hearing yourself. Most of us are not. I am as a singer. I have to listen to
Yeah.
myself a lot on
Yes.
recordings. But when we are doing our actual speaking, when I'm speaking or singing for that matter, in the moment, I will never be able to hear myself as my
Mhm.
audience hears me,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Because it's what I'm hearing right now when I'm speaking is filtered through layers of bone and tissue.
Mhm.
So I have a different perception of my speaking voice. So, I don't want people to worry about their speaking voice too much, but we can even do a couple little vocal warm ups before going into a
Mhm.
speaking engagement to make sure that we're really exercising our instrument, our vocal instrument, just like we would exercise other parts of our body before running a race. And
Okay.
frequently, I think most of us forget that this is an instrument here, and it's made up of cartilage and tissues and ligaments and
Mhm.
musculature. And this is our sort of sound source, right? And it's hooked up to
Yes.
our power source of the breath. So it's the breath that powers the sound. So even just doing some easy things before we speak, like some sort of, this is probably going to be kind of goofy right now, but just
Mhm.
a sort of open mouth sigh, like, ah.
Oh, with the sound too.
Ah,
I'm doing
exactly.
it too with you.
Ah, things like that to really
Uh-huh.
exercise our range because our voice is not monotone by nature. It
Yes.
goes through different pitch categories, right? Different frequencies.
Mhm.
And when we're nervous, some of us can go either a little bit monotone or we can get a little bit high pitched and strained sounding. And then we end up sounding that way to our audience, which also then makes our audience a little bit nervous for us.
Right. Yes. My, I think it was my younger son that was saying he was watching something and he's like, "I'm cringing for them."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly, and
it's like
this is
so
our
cringy.
yes, right, we cringe for people. I've had that
Yes.
experience so often, right? We have these, things called excuse me, mirror neurons in our
Mhm.
brains that
Yes.
cause us to sort of, pick up on what the other person is feeling emotionally, and even if
Mhm.
perhaps their face isn't conveying it or their body, if their voice conveys it, our brain picks up on that, and then if you're nervous, I tend to feel more nervous and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Mhm. And then that's not gonna convey confidence to
No,
someone,
no.
right? They're gonna feel that you're nervous,
Mhm.
and they're gonna feel kind of that, I'm just gonna use his word, cringy. I'm sure it's not his word, it's probably a generational.
Yeah, no, cringy for sure. Yeah, you feel kind of
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
nervousness feels contagious. Now, but here's the
Mhm.
beauty in this is that, like I mentioned before, we don't have to feel 100% confident.
Yes.
But what we can become more aware of, and this is really just skills building. I
Mhm.
apologize. I have allergies, and so I just have a
Oh,
little
yes, I know, I have my water
difficult.
because the allergies are active.
Yeah, we also have forest fires in New Mexico right now, a lot of
Oh,
them. So the air is very smoky. Um, we can just do some simple things with our voices and our bodies that are going to
Mhm.
help us appear and actually then also feel a little bit more grounded and confident.
Mhm.
And one of them is just to make sure that we are standing or sitting with a lot of openness here.
Okay, so like this area. Okay.
Exactly. Really open here in our sternum area.
Mhm.
Now, this is the worst. Of course, I go live and then have a coughing attack.
Yeah. That's fine. Drink your water and, like, whatever you need to do to help.
Could happen in real public speaking situations
Yes,
too, right?
exactly,
I'm not
yes.
going to let it fluster me because I'm human and these things happen. But
Um,
yeah, we want to make sure that we are, first of all, aware of ourselves from the neck down. What is my body communicating to people who are
okay.
around me?
Yes.
And when we are afraid, because we are part of the animal kingdom,
Mhm.
any animal in the animal kingdom, when they are afraid, generally speaking, what they do is they close themselves
Mm.
in order to protect internal organs,
Okay, that makes
right?
sense.
So
Yeah.
this is why our senses, when we see somebody who's kind of hunched, making
Mhm.
themselves small, we pick up on their fear and their nervousness,
Mhm.
just as we would if we were animals, and then that they might become a target, right? We might view them as easier prey for et cetera, et cetera. So
Mhm.
what we want to do, whether we're feeling it or not, is we want to make sure that our body is very open, that we are thinking kind of like we have a marionette string up here
Okay,
coming
like
from
at
the
the
crown of our head.
crown, the back of the crown
Crown,
of your
exactly, the
head,
back,
yeah.
not here because we don't want to raise and lift from the
Yeah, like
forehead.
this. Yeah.
We want to raise and lift from here. So I could even grab a
Okay.
little chunk of my hair here and go whoop and feel this kind of nice length in the back of my neck
Mhm.
so that I'm standing as tall as possible. I'm very petite, so I can use all the help I can get. But it's not even about our height necessarily. It's about if I'm holding my body in this
Mhm.
tall, more proud stance, and I walk out onto the stage or to the podium, even as I'm walking up there, the audience is picking up on how I'm feeling, how I'm doing.
Right. Yeah.
So that entrance oftentimes just up onto the stage or towards the podium through the room, how we're holding ourselves there, the audience has
Mm.
already read so much about us before we even open our mouths.
How fast do people make those judgments?
Oh, I think they make them pretty darn quickly. I'd
Mhm.
have
It's
to
like a few
see if
seconds, right?
I
I don't know the exact.
yeah, I would guess it's
Mm.
probably within a few seconds of when we see someone. Now,
Yes.
that's not to say that we couldn't stumble or maybe have something happen or go, oh, shoot, I forgot to pay attention to that, that we can't
Mhm.
recover.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's that sort of, first impressions rule that our first few moments with someone,
Mhm.
we are either maybe put at ease and we feel relaxed and excited to listen to what they're going to say, or
Right.
we feel tense and nervous, or we feel sort of closed off if they are closed off.
Mhm.
So we are like a mirror, mirroring things to our audience and them back at us. So it's like this double mirroring process.
Right, okay, yeah. So that mirror those mirror neurons watching, how you walk on to the podium, the stage, even, like we're doing this is
Mhm.
a type of presentation,
Definitely.
right?
Mhm.
And so then, when you when we're like, I'm always thinking, I'm like, okay, looking adjusting my clothes or my
Sure.
hair or
Mhm.
whatever, we're
Yeah,
always
and
like,
fiddling.
you
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
used to seeing ourselves, right? Because I
Yes.
think that it's a little that's kind of an oddity because when we walk on
Oh,
stage, we're not really watching ourselves.
very much so, and thank you for bringing that up. In
Yeah.
fact, a lot of what I work on, with clients is online presenting because it's one
Yes.
thing to present in person. That already
Mhm.
creates enough anxiety for folks, but we're more
Yeah.
used to that or have been
Mhm.
historically more used to that. But suddenly we're in this day and age where we get to do cool things like this, speak to one
Yes.
another on a screen.
Mhm.
Um, what I always advise clients to do is once they have, let's say you're doing something on Zoom, and I do a lot of speaking on Zoom. In fact, just last week, I gave a presentation to hundreds of people
Yes.
in a conference on Zoom. And it's a weird kind of nerves because here I am sitting or standing in my office at home in my slippers and, my comfy bottoms and my professional top, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like everyday life for me. Yet I have all of these imaginary faces on the other side of
Mhm.
the camera. And because my brain can't see all of them, I mean, first of all, it's a literal impossibility for me to see all the faces on Zoom, right? Because they don't all fit on the
They don't
screen,
fit.
nor
Yes.
nor would I want to see them, honestly.
Mhm.
But our brain is still trying really hard to read the room.
Mhm.
So if you and I are in person doing something like this, we can look out at the faces and we can say, okay, that person looks friendly and engaged. Maybe I'm doing a good job. Oh, I'm going to speak more over in this person's direction because I really see them nodding and smiling at me. Oh, I
Yes.
see this one person over there just sort of like, "Meh, I'm not going to look over there." Right. So we're picking up on all of these social
Mhm.
cues around us. And on Zoom, we can't do that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what our brain is still trying to do is it's still trying to read the room, yet there's no room to read.
Mhm.
And I think it creates a lot of cognitive dissonance for us. And then added on to that, like you mentioned, I also have this silly mirror here that's reflecting me back at myself. Now,
Yes.
the beauty is, I don't know if we can do this on StreamYard. It might be worth looking into for the
Okay.
future. Once I get my kind of camera positioning going for my Zoom,
Mhm.
then I go to the hide self view
Yeah.
function
Yeah.
so that I'm not seeing myself. And whether I'm just working one on one with a client on Zoom or I'm presenting at a conference or talking
Mhm.
online, I always hide my self view so that my eyeballs are not continuously distracted. Well, not only my eyeballs, but of course my brain are not
Yes.
continuously distracted by what do I look like? What do I look like? And we don't even have to be vain. It's not about vanity. It's about,
No.
like you
Yeah.
said, we wouldn't normally speak or perform in front of a mirror.
Yes.
Yet here I have this mirror. It's like when you go to a restaurant with friends, and a lot of restaurants will have mirrors on one side. And
Mhm.
if you are the person not sitting near the mirror, let's say the mirror is above you and your
Mhm.
friend is sitting across from you, you will notice your friend or partner's eyes just constantly drifting towards the mirror. And yeah, it's very, very distracting. And I think a lot of people forget about that option of hiding the self view.
Yeah, that's a great tip for especially this online presentation because it's
Mhm.
not something that we've all got used to being on like presenting online, meeting
Yes.
people online, but our evolutionary, it's our brains are not,
No,
right?
certainly not.
Not
Certainly
used to
not.
this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think our brains, they go crazy imagining all of the possibilities because our brain is an amazing organ, but its main job is to keep us alive.
Yes.
Its
Mhm.
main job is not to really help us thrive. I love the phrase, I don't know who created it. Our brain cares more about poisonous berries than yummy berries.
Okay, that
Right?
makes sense.
Evolutionarily speaking, it's gonna be more important for my brain to remember where the poisonous berries are so that I
Mhm.
don't eat them and perish, than
Yes.
it is important for my brain to remember where the yummy berries are.
Mm.
Because as long as I get some type of berry that's not poisonous, I might be okay. The yummy ones are fun, but my
Yes.
brain is much more concerned with the poison because it wants me to stay alive. Yet we live in a world with relative amounts, especially here, in the United States or in North America, with relatively high amounts of personal safety.
Yes.
So we're no longer facing major, major threats, but then we have all of these invisible threats.
Mhm.
And the invisible threat for us at this point in time might be who is on the other side of this camera and what are they thinking about me?
Mhm.
And how might they be negatively judging me? What would that mean for me in my future?
Right, how would that impact you, the
Mhm.
long run in your business career,
Sure.
all those
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We deeply care about what others think, and we're hardwired to do so. It's also part of our survival.
It's part of survival. Yes. Yes, I know I've heard people say, "I don't care what anybody thinks," and it's not
Yes, I
true.
say.
Well, you can learn for it not to impact you, I think,
Yes, you can learn to
right?
care less.
To
There's
care less
definitely a
about it.
spectrum here.
Yeah.
But if we truly did not care at all what others think,
Mhm.
I think it's a near impossibility because we are
Mhm.
hardwired to be social. So at the very least, we care what our children or our parents or our partners or our friends think.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Some people more than others,
Yes,
right?
yes, some more than others, and like I
Mhm.
said, we can definitely be too far on that spectrum of caring too much. I like
Right.
to tell my clients, if we could just accept that in any given audience, in any given room, there
Mhm.
will likely be people who like us, people
Mhm.
who feel neutral about us, and perhaps even people who don't like us. And
Mhm.
that sounds very scary at first to some folks, But I think if we can really sit with that idea of, I will not be universally liked.
Yes.
Because if I'm getting up there trying to be universally liked, I'm
Mhm.
going to drive myself nuts. I'm probably going to water down my message and try to serve too many people and try to second guess. Oh, do they like that? Maybe I should say it this way.
Right, I need to address this person and that person.
Yeah,
Or
I
the
need to make
person
sure
like
that
this
everybody
in the room.
I need to win over that guy at the back of the room scowling at me, right? And for all I know, he's scowling because he has a stomach ache. So we
Yeah,
don't
who
wanna go
knows
to
what's going on in the
exactly, we don't
mind,
wanna
yeah.
jump to conclusions, but yeah, in any given room, I can make the decision before walking in there that it's okay. I don't have to be for everybody, and
Mhm.
just statistically speaking, it's highly unlikely that everybody will love me.
Yes, yes, and it's not like we love everybody also.
Precisely. We
So,
don't love
yeah,
everybody. Yeah, so why
yes,
do we feel like everybody has to love us?
that's right. I
Yeah.
don't know. Why is that? Why do we feel that?
I don't know.
Safety,
I think once
right?
again, back
Wanting
to safety,
yeah,
security, social structure, not wanting to be rejected
mhm.
by our
'Cause
group,
that
by
meant
our tribe.
in I mean, even evolutionary, being rejected meant
Death.
death.
Could have meant
Yeah,
death,
yeah, it
certainly.
could have meant death, yeah.
Or less access to resources, mates,
Mhm,
etcetera. Yeah, so
yeah,
it's a very real threat to our nervous system, all
mhm,
of um, the social relationships, and, so I like to just explain that biology piece to folks so that they understand, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with me for caring. I
yes.
care because I'm invested and I wanna do well
Mhm,
nervous. I'm fearful because I don't want to fail. I also care about what others think about me. But let's just, rein it in a little bit. Make sure we're not trying to, uh, that we're not considering ourselves a failure if that one person or five people or 10 people are doing one of these while we're speaking or presenting.
yes, exactly. Well, so I think that it's important because you are a giver. Like I think we both have that.
Yeah.
We want to give
I like to
much
think that about us,
information. We want to help. Yes, I want to
Kavita.
help as many people. I want to give so much information, but I think
Yeah.
it's important to kind of give a little bit of a summary of some of
Mhm.
the tips that you've given on how to
Sure.
convey confidence.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'd love to hear how you work with people, like if someone comes to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right, good. So, what are some of the tips? I mean, I can remember you started with how you enter the room,
Mhm.
preparing.
Sure.
So I'll let you
Yeah.
take that part.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things.
Mhm,
We want to be mindful in our preparation process that we're not rehearsing the anxiety along with the content, that we're not linking those things together, but that we take some moments and use some strategies such as some slow breathing, use a
mhm.
meditation app, use any type of grounding activity to bring ourselves back down, literally feet on the ground, even to really feel my feet on the
Yes.
ground
Mhm,
and to set some intentions of how I want to feel physically and emotionally, to rehearse those intentions along with my content.
mhm.
When we are in the room, I mean, there's lots of anxiety management strategies that we didn't get into, but when we are in the room, let's say we're in a big conference and we're the
Mhm.
second to last speaker in the day or whatever it is, there are other people speaking before us. We want to make sure that we're really taking a moment to breathe and maybe even taking a break, leaving the room, going to a restroom stall, and just
Mhm.
doing some slow breathing in order to help calm our nervous systems.
Yes.
It matters how we are carrying ourselves when we are walking up to the podium. So don't forget
Yes.
about that little detail. The
Mhm.
content that we're sharing oftentimes is actually usually pretty forgettable to our audience. They might remember a couple little nuggets.
Yes.
Well, we get so focused and so obsessed with the right content and the right
Mhm.
delivery of the content. And so much of human communication is the nonverbals.
Yes.
We
Okay.
can do a few things to, warm up our voice a little bit before. Those are things I work on with a lot of my clients, but even just some easy sighing or some noise making, singing along with your favorite song in the car on the way. You just
Yep.
don't want to go in cold if you haven't spoken in an hour or two because you're sitting and listening. You want to do something to warm up the voice a little bit.
Okay.
Could be some humming, could just be speaking to a colleague. Once again, it could be taking a walk outside the building and just doing some noise making, some humming. Those are a whole bunch of other strategies, but that's kind of
Yes.
the tip of the iceberg. And then really deciding to be okay with not being for everyone,
Mhm.
and accepting that I won't please everybody when I get up here, but I can locate the few friendly faces in the room and make sure that I'm directing my energy towards that. We're going to
Right.
get a lot more back from those folks,
Mhm.
in terms of our mirror neurons as well. We're going to receive that open, positive, supportive energy. And then if we see the kind of long faces in the crowd, we have to
Yes.
practice not jumping to any conclusions, and that's more of
Mhm.
the mental strategies. And these can take time, right? And it doesn't come naturally to all of us because we want to be like.
Mhm. Yes, it takes practice,
It
right? And
does.
then and so yes, and even the last thing I want to add to that is when you talked about turning off your own
Mhm. Oh, yes, thank you for that
camera, like
reminder.
not your camera, turning off the self view.
Yeah, turning off the self view. I know it's I know for a fact because I use Zoom primarily. It's really easy to do in Zoom. I
Mhm.
know you can do it in Google Meets. It's a little harder to find,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that you could do it in Microsoft Teams and such. I think every one of the conferencing technology that we have nowadays has the ability for you to hide yourself. And when in doubt, take a little post-it note and just cover up your face on your computer
Yes.
screen so you don't have to look at
Low
yourself.
tech, low
Low
tech.
tech. I'm all about low tech solutions as well.
It works.
It does.
Great. Yes, so I love all those tips, those are all, even just, about the stance, the confidence when you enter, and then, how
Mhm.
you started by talking about you don't have to feel fully confident,
No.
right?
In fact, you
Um,
most likely won't,
mhm,
and that's okay.
yeah. But you want it as much as you can,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Have that emotional feeling of, "I can do this," that
Mhm.
positivity of like, yes, I can
Yeah.
do this. I know my stuff. I'm here. I'm
Mhm.
meant to be here," like that kind of
Oh, yeah.
mindset.
Yes, that
Yes.
positive self-talk mindset work is a huge part of what I
Mhm,
do as well because it if I'm setting the intention oftentimes without knowing it, right? But
mhm,
I'm having this intention that somehow this has to be perfect
mhm.
in somebody's eyes and standards. I don't know whose, but right there's this elusive perfection that I'm searching
Yes.
for.
What will they think?
What will they, the big they, exactly.
They, who's they?
I
I don't
want
know.
them to be impressed.
Uh-huh.
But I was working with somebody recently, and I asked her, "What is your intention when you go in there to deliver this material? What are you hoping that the audience receives? What are you
Mhm,
there to deliver?" And right, most of the time when we're getting up to talk about something, we want to deliver value. We want to feel connected to our audience. We want them to walk away with something tangible that they can use or apply. We're up
mhm.
there to be in conversation and to share something, to give something.
Right.
So I like that reminder too, of this sort of generosity of what I'm about to get up here and do. And then it takes the focus off of us and how we're doing and
Mhm,
puts the focus back on the conversation. Because even though, if I'm giving a speech, it might just seem like it's me talking at people. There is a conversation happening with
mhm.
the looks and the glances and the nodding and the questions and things that happen when we're in these scenarios.
Yes, and so that idea of connecting to the purpose of why you're doing this,
Yeah.
right? On
Hmm.
one level of the purpose of the actual speech,
Hmm.
right? And then maybe even on the other level of the purpose of why you do your work
Yeah.
overall.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I like that. Hmm.
Yeah, so that creates that more, "Yeah, this is not about me,"
Yeah.
right? Even
Yeah.
that camera, the hiding yourself is like, "This is not about me. This
Hmm.
is about the audience. This is about what I wanna share, the message," right? And so
Yeah.
that can create that level of higher level of confidence as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even logging on to be here with you today, I
Mhm.
took a little moment to think, what is my intention of
Yes.
meeting with Kavita today?
Mhm,
And it is to share some tips and tricks that are really easy that hopefully people in your audience will find useful. That even if they took one of these and said, oh, I have a new thing I can use to add to my toolkit, then
mhm.
I could consider this a job well done.
Yes, I love that, yeah. And I mean, and I wanted to have you here because I know you have so much knowledge and you have so much to share, right? And a lot of my audience is, this second generation immigrants and not grown up in necessarily families where you're taught to be visible,
Sure.
right?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
this idea of, your conditioning is let's blend in. You don't want
Mhm.
to stand out, right? If you stand out, there's
Exactly.
certain things. So
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah,
that
this
can
is a
create
very big
more
cultural piece and a
Mhm.
gendered piece as well,
Gendered, yes. Mhm.
that, you know, even people with the most privilege in the world can be stricken with imposter syndrome,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
right? And but
Mhm.
then you take away many of the privilege aspects, and if you are the first person in your family to receive a college education and to be in a corporate sphere,
Mhm.
you don't have any modeling from home that
That's
you've
right.
been
Yeah.
privy to for your entire lifetime, and so you might not have any great role models around you, right? If you're a person of color in certain spheres, you might be the token person of color around that they are like, you
Very
might be the one person,
the one, yes.
and that is, that's a hard position to be in because you don't
Mhm.
have any role models
Right. And
necessarily.
then, yeah, there's no role models, there's no, examples or very few
Yes.
examples.
Mhm.
And then, you adding that layer of being one of the few in the room. A
Yes.
lot of women in tech positions, they are often one of the few women in the room and women of color. And I know a
Mhm.
lot of my clients are be considered in the category of AAPI, the
Mhm.
Asian American Pacific Islander.
Mhm.
And there's so many there's one of the things is the model minority
Yep.
myth, right?
Mhm.
And so this like
Mhm.
they have these expectations of how you are supposed to know all these things, and so there's that
Mhm.
pressure
You're
also.
supposed to always be top of the class in
Yes.
everything, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there's like that added kind of, and those things may be unconscious, and you may not even realize how it's impacting how you show up. So
Oh,
I love that you
certainly.
were bringing this to more of that consciousness.
Yeah, and then
Mhm.
add to that, that public speaking or being in front of a crowd is scary for most humans.
Yes. Oh god. Yes. That's like a human thing. I
Yeah.
wasn't it somewhere that I had learned, I remember in university that people would rather they're more fear of public speaking than dying or something like that. Yeah.
I've heard that before. I don't know how they create those
Let's see
stats.
how do they
Which
come up
people
with
are they
that?
quizzing? But
How
yeah,
do
it's
they come up? I don't know.
yeah, but most, it's sort of like, being a singer, a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, I could never do that," or "I could never sing," or "I could never do what you do." And I always think to myself, no, that's actually not true. While maybe not everybody is cut out to be a professional opera singer,
Yes.
we all have the ability to build skills, whether it's singing or presenting or growing our confidence, developing a different mindset. Uh, we all are so limitless in our potential. So I caution folks to watch out for how they are speaking
Mhm.
about themselves to themselves, right? The
Yes.
old that ye old self-talk. Watch out
Mhm.
when we say, I'm not good at that, or I could never. That's absolutely not true. If I handed you $1 million, would you do it? Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
Most people would. And if not 1 million, maybe 10 would tempt you, right? So
Mhm.
I like to use that $1 million question, like, okay, but if I gave you $1 million, would you? Okay, then we see it is possible.
Mhm.
It's it you would struggle through it. But you'd find a way to do it. And then how would you find a way to do it? How do
That's
we
right.
stand on the diving board and jump off the high dive? What
Yes,
what
how to do
happens in
it.
that moment?
Mhm. Yes, I love that. And I do want I know that I always like to hear a little bit about what motivates someone to do the work they do in the world, a little bit of their
Mhm.
story. So before we go into I know I promised we talk about how you work with people,
Yep.
which we will, but I'd love to hear a little bit about why do you do this? We talked about the why and understanding.
Yeah, I love that question, Kavita. Thank you for asking me. Um, Singing was always really the only thing I wanted to do,
Mhm.
and, it was sort of a deeply spiritual practice for me as well. It causes me a lot of heartache and struggle. It's not always all fun and games and very glamorous, but, it just feels like who I'm meant to be in the world and one of the gifts that I am meant to share in the world. And so when I retired from full-time singing, I thought, gosh, I want to find something else that I can do in the world that has that same amount of deep meaning for me, where
Yes.
I
Yes.
am, where even the struggle parts of it feel very worth it.
Yes.
And
Okay.
one of my greatest values, I think, is my own personal freedom to decide how my day goes and to be flexible and independent. And um, I also really, really love working individually with people or in groups.
Mhm.
And I kind of feel like in some ways I was a born therapist. I served that role for many people in my life, obviously not in a professional fashion, but yeah, I'm sure you feel the same way, that there are just some of us out there who really enjoy that one-on-one work. We have
Mhm.
a deep understanding of how human emotions and brains work, and we find it endlessly fascinating. And even
Yes.
in the hard times with some of my therapy clients who are in crisis, at the end of my day, I could always say, I know how I contributed today. And
Yes.
even if it felt like it was a tiny drop in the bucket on the worst days, at least I could be that one person to listen and care.
Mm.
So when I got into being a therapist, or when I was contemplating going into it, it just felt like, oh, that's me. That's who, another version of who I'm meant to be in this world. And then it dawned on me after a few years, oh wow, I could try to be this person for the high performers out there who maybe are not going to need the more sort of foundational therapeutic help. Perhaps they've already had that, they've experienced that, they've had access and privilege to that.
Mhm.
But because of my background with the stage, I found that I could really help people learn how to appear and then hopefully feel more confident in those
Mm.
public arenas, because I've had to work on a ton of it myself, and I still have to
Mhm.
work on it. I had a concert this past weekend, and I had to use all of my best tips and tricks and strategies in order to maintain my focus and my
Mhm.
groundedness, because it was, due to many different factors, um, a challenging piece, and I had had a challenging week in my personal life the week ahead of that, that
Oh,
derailed a few things.
okay.
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's I love helping people learn and grow and see that they can get up and do things that they didn't think were possible before. I just
Mhm.
I love to be I love to be a part of or privy to human growth. It's so exciting for me.
Yes, I love your thank you for sharing that story, right? And the steps. And I think it's inspiring and to others to see that, just because one part is kind of feeling like I'm leaving that,
Yeah.
right? I'm leaving
Mhm.
and I know a lot of people are leaving careers right now
Mhm.
and they're not sure like where am I going to go next and
Yeah.
they may not it may not be clear to them right
Mhm.
away.
It won't be most
Yeah,
of the
and
time.
most of the time it's not, right?
Yeah.
And then being able to know that, people there's hope. There's like just figuring out
Yeah.
where are the next steps. It's about taking those next steps and the next steps. I don't know if you saw yourself here when you
No.
left. No, right?
No.
It was
Heck,
like this.
I would have had no way of imagining this. I
Yeah.
could I could envision what a singing career might look like, and,
Mhm.
what it looked like to achieve that, but then once that chapter of my life ended, I it was wide open, and it was
Yes.
very scary at times, of course, I won't lie. But it's a kind of like being on a fun, thrilling roller coaster.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
yeah, it's every day is something new, and I find the journey of entrepreneurship, um, it's a struggle that I am willing to go through, the
Mhm.
bad days, the hard days, in order to grow something that is truly mine and truly indicative of how I want to be in the world, who I want to show up as in the world. Um, yeah, so it's true. We don't have to know what's coming next. We just have
Mhm.
to find that next baby step to take.
Yeah, the next step. It's the next step. So I love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And so if people are interested in um first connecting with you.
Yeah.
What's the best way? And then how do you work with people?
Either here on LinkedIn under my name, Ingela Onstad, or
Mhm.
on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Courageous Artistry.
Okay.
And you can also message me through my website, DM me on any of those things. And the way I work with people is two different ways. I have a VIP day. That
Okay.
would be for the professional who is incredibly busy and needs some skills fast. Maybe something came up that they are not prepared for, and they
Mhm.
want to learn some things very quickly so that they can just jump right in and then be on their way. And then I also have a longer term coaching program. That's a 4-month program, and I meet with clients about twice a month during that. And then we're interacting, or they are interacting with a software platform, and have homework and accountability checks, and have access to me, and we're talking in between sessions via email, and whatnot. So yeah, those are kind of the two main ways. I also do a lot of talks and presentations at different things for different types of organizations. But I love my one-on-one work.
Yes, I love that. So there's lots of ways to connect with you, and I'll put those links
Thank you.
in the notes later on. And so want to thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming, showing up today, doing this, sharing your wisdom, and doing your work in the world. Thank
Well, thank you, Kavita. I'm a big fan of you and what you do in the world. And I hope that whoever is listening or watching got a couple things that they can take away and put into play very quickly and see some small or maybe medium or big results from them.
Yes, yes, and even if you're not ready to work with Ingela or with me or whatever, sending us a message and say, "Look, I received this
I
from."
love that. Yeah.
Yes, I would love to hear just, to know that
Yeah.
you received something and what that was.
Yeah, and if people join my mailing list, which they could do through my website, I
Mhm.
send out weekly emails. I do a lot of free webinars, and I know that not everybody can or is able to work with me. I might not be the right fit for everybody, but I
Mhm.
try to do my part to put as much free material out there in the world so that people are still benefiting.
Right. So love that. And thank you for sharing that too, because they can connect with you and still learn
Yes.
and then receive um, some gems of wisdom
Mhm.
that way.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yes, hopefully, yes.
All right. Well, thank you, whoever, for all the listeners. And
Yes.
until I like to always end by saying, until next time, take good care. Okay. Bye. Thank you for joining me for Aligned and Soulful Leadership. I was inspired to start this podcast as a way to empower women of color to rise up into their aligned leadership. Remember, I will have all the resources I mentioned during this episode available in the show notes at alignedandsoulfulpodcast.com. I'm your host, Kavita, and if you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends. And if you haven't received my free abundance meditation and exercise, then go to alignedandsoulfulleadership.com and subscribe to my newsletter, and you will receive this powerful visualization and exercise to ignite your abundant life. Thank you. Until next time, take good care. Bye.